Hi everybody, hope you're doing well. I just finished God of War Ragnarok. There's a couple things to discuss here. I have a little itinerary in front of me. First thing I'm going to touch on in this video is I'm going to give just a quick spoiler-free review for those of you who aren't sure if the game is going to be interesting, you would like to know a little bit more about it, my opinions on it, and after I do that, I am going to talk about my prediction video, the one that I released on March 18th, 2021. I'm going to go over all the 9 predictions I made, what I got right, what I got wrong. So yeah, get strapped in. This is going to be a fun video because this is the first time I'm doing a video that's essentially a discussion video as opposed to one of the ones that I normally do. And the reason I'm doing it in this format is because it's much faster to edit and I want to get something out for people. So here's a quick spoiler-free review for those of you who don't know whether you should get this game, even if you haven't played the previous God of War from 2018. Here's something I wrote down for you to kind of give you an idea. God of War Ragnarok is the sequel to God of War 2018. The story is about a Greek god named Kratos who has attempted to restart his life and forget his past by sailing to a new land which turns out to be Midgard, the Norse realm, where he encounters the Norse pantheon of gods, such as Odin, Thor, Balder, and Freya. The 2018 game ends with the death of Balder, which kickstarts a sequence of events that eventually lead to Ragnarok, which is where the current game takes place. In this new game, you're going to follow the journey of Kratos and his son Atreus, and it's a third-person RPG with a focus on combat, and there's also a lot of puzzles involved. The story touches on the themes of identity, fate, forgiveness, and the consequences of our actions. Now, as far as the story goes, I thought the story was actually really good. I was very worried in the beginning when I first started playing. Well, let me put it to you this way. I had a lot of concerns that this game would not live up to how good the previous one was. And I'm very happy to say that I think it did. I think it recaptured the same spirit that the 2018 game showed, with an emphasis on the bonding between father and son and the importance of family and being able to accept essentially your past but try to improve. This is something that is touched on a lot in the 2018 game, but also in this one, the 2022 game. Constantly we talk about Kratos and his past and how many horrible things he's done. But despite the horrible things he's done, it doesn't define him as a person. The choices that he makes are what define you as a person. And this is something that they always touch on heavily, that you essentially always have a choice. You're not destined to be an evil person. You're not destined to be a good person. Your choices are what essentially define you. Real quick, I want to talk about the performances in this game. Specifically, Christopher Judge, who's Kratos, Sunny Soljic, who is Atreus, and Danielle Basutti, who is Freya. These 3 are very much the heart and soul of this game. Kratos is definitely the protagonist, but these 3 carry so much weight in this game. And all 3 were able to explore sides to their characters that we have never seen before. It was amazing to see them evolve as the game progressed, and I really hope to see all 3 of them continue to succeed in future roles, because there were many times in this game where I just had to sit back in awe of their performances. The relationships that develop in this story are very impactful. As far as the story and the writing goes, I thought it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it a lot. There were many things. There were way more good things than there were poorly written things. I think, unfortunately, this game, because there is so much in it, there's magic, there's prophecies, time travel, you name it. There's so much magic going on in this game that, unfortunately, there are a lot of shortcuts that are taken in terms of the story. If I could give a couple examples, like something in the 2018 game will be prophesied. In fact, many things will be prophesied in the 2018 game. And then in the 2022 game, they're like, haha, lol, doesn't matter. Actually, the prophecy wasn't true. The actual prophecy was this, which is, it's okay. That's fine, you know? But unfortunately, it happens so often that it almost makes you think, like, maybe they just added a bunch of things and, you know, they just kind of ran out of time to explore certain elements because it would have taken too long. Like, for example, in the 2018 game, there was a big deal made about a horn that was blown to signal a very large magical creature. And in this game, it's never explained. They never bring it up, they never talk about it, and it's just one of those small examples of something that they had added that had no payoff. It's small things like that that kind of take place in this game, which is unfortunate. I'm not saying that in a happy sort of way. It makes me sad to say that, but that's just the truth. Okay, so now let's move on to the gameplay. This will involve the combat and the puzzles. As far as the combat goes, they added a lot of new stuff, which was great. They added a ton of new elements. There's additional forms of Spartan Rage. Well, there are a lot more skills as well. I don't want to reveal too much, but there are quite a lot of improvements made to the combat, and I have to say that I really appreciate the changes, and I think overall the quality of life for the game has improved substantially. The puzzles are good. You know, here's the thing. The puzzles are kind of take it or leave it. There are options to make the puzzles much easier in the options menu. Maybe you're not a puzzle person. I am a puzzle person, so I actually really enjoy exploring the realms, for example, and solving puzzles. That's something that I personally enjoy. If you're somebody who doesn't enjoy it, there's options for you. If you're somebody that doesn't enjoy it, then I think you're going to have a good time. Let's go with the animations and the graphics. It's pretty similar to the previous game. They did take a lot of shortcuts in the sense that as you're playing the game, the first creatures that you encounter in this one are going to have a lot of new kill animations, and I want to say that there's a lot of new mechanics involved that they hit you with right off the beginning, and it's really exciting. But as the game progresses, you'll meet an ogre, you'll meet a troll from the old game. There's no new animations. It's the exact same animations from the previous one. So they did take a couple shortcuts there. I do want to mention really quick that one of the things that they did change in this game, which made me really happy, was there was this mechanic in the 2018 game where you would essentially kick a chain when you were at a high ledge, and the chain would fall down, and then they would force you into a position where Kratos would immediately start climbing the chain downwards, and it was always frustrating. And they fixed that, which is, it's a very small thing, but they fixed that in this, and it made me very happy. That's just an animation fix that makes me very, very happy. Now when you kick down a chain, you have the option to decide to climb down it or not. And there are many times that you can just now kick it and then just keep going. So it's a very small, minor thing, but you know, it makes me very happy. So this next element, a lot of people might have problems with this. A lot of people might not have problems with this. I don't really know. This channel is not a political channel, and I don't want it to become a political channel. But it is undeniable that there are a lot of left-leaning elements in this game. And I'm not saying necessarily that this is a bad thing per se, because a lot of the left-leaning elements in this game don't affect the story. But I, as somebody who just wants a God of War game, am often left going, why? Why? Why is this in my God of War game? And I'm going to give a couple examples of that right now. So, and remember, keep in mind, these elements, they're not a huge part of the story. But I feel it's important to talk about these elements because they're in the game, and I want people to know this. So that way, if you do decide to get the game, you can keep this in the back of your head, and maybe it appeals to you. And that's fine if it does. But if it doesn't, then this is important information for you probably. There's a lot of emphasis on saving animals and saving the planet. There are several missions that involve you rescuing animals and saving animals. This happens a lot. Off the top of my head, there are at least 4 side quests that involve this. And one of the side quests, you actually kill a bunch of people that are responsible for capturing several wolves. And this is one of those things where it's like, the first time it happened, it was kind of like, okay, I guess we're saving creatures now. The second time it happened, the third time it happened, the fourth time happened, I was like, okay, why are we doing this so much? Why? There's so many different types of side missions you could do. Why are you overly emphasizing on Kratos saving animals? It becomes a little too much for me, and it might become that way for you. Another thing that's important to point out is there is a side mission that is called Across the Realms. Across the Realms is a mission where basically you learn about the story of 2 gay men and how they fall in love. And this side mission is pretty quick. It doesn't require that much effort on your part because you basically just gather the items and then you distribute them in a rainbow pot. Well, it's like a normal pot that is emitting like a rainbow smoke. And you basically learn about how these 2 were searching for this unnameable thing. And then at the end of the story, they're like, what was that unnameable thing? The unnameable thing was a home. And they found that home in one another. Have whatever opinion on it you want. I thought it was completely unnecessary. It comes off to me as incredibly preachy. Why are you adding this into a God of War game? Why? It makes no sense to hit on this so hard. As the story is being told by Mimir, Kratos is intrigued to hear more, which doesn't make a lot of sense because Kratos is not the kind of person to be interested in love stories to begin with. It's very unusual for his character to suddenly want to be so interested in hearing about a love story. Not only that, but here's something else to think about. Kratos is from ancient Greece. The ancient Greeks, those people, they were, when it came to sexuality, they were essentially all pansexual, like anything goes. Have sex with men, women, objects, doesn't matter, right? And it was never brought up in the original God of War games. If you actually play the God of War games, Kratos definitely has like sex scenes with women, but the other sexual aspects of ancient Greece are never brought up because they didn't feel at the time that it was very important. Now, obviously, those games were made a long time ago, and a lot of people would say, well, hey, it's about time that we started putting that stuff in our games, and I don't think so. I disagree. I think that when you add that kind of stuff, it just feels forced. And there's nothing wrong with having a gay character. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But when you start to put these things into a game like this, and it's not just a game where it's like, this is a brand new franchise. This is a franchise that's been around a while, and Kratos is an old character. He's been around for quite some time now. People's sexuality was never important to him before, and it still shouldn't be now. Again, this is one of those things where it's like, I have to bring this up because this is just stuff that some people might want to know. Another left-leaning aspect is there are giants. Atreus is a giant. His mother was a giant. Thor is half giant. Basically, a lot of people are either partly giant or whole giant and were white. But in this one, 2 of them are black. There is a character who is a black giant and her grandmother who is also a black giant. There's also another character who shows up later in the story who's also black. Now, they never explain this. Like, the color of their skin never comes up, which is great, actually. I really like that they didn't feel the need to go like, why do you have dark skin? It doesn't make any sense to me, because that would have been kind of strange. It's not a major part of the story. These are all things that are not major components of the story, but you can definitely get the sense that they wanted to be more inclusive. They wanted to, and by inclusive, I don't even really mean inclusive. I think the game is already pretty inclusive because it deals very heavily with races getting along with one another. You already have that. You already have that in the game. That's the thing that's just so strange about this. It's like in the 2018, they emphasized how important it is for the races to essentially unite with one another. And they express that through the races that already exist in the game. Through the giants, the Aesir, the Vanir, the Light Elves, the Dark Elves, the Dwarves. They all recognize that they need to be working together. So when you add several people into this new game that are black, it comes off as they just want to look good in front of the audience. Like they know that the game is going to be very popular. They know that they're probably going to win Game of the Year. They want to look good in front of the people who are going to be reviewing the game. And the video game franchise in general is very left-leaning as it is, so maybe this is to be expected. And again, this is not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with having black characters, but it comes off as very confusing. The reason it comes off as confusing is because the Norse myths, they originated in Germany. That's where they originated. And those people were white because of the climate. But I think they just felt a modern day pressure to incorporate as many different races as possible. Again, these are not major components to the story. The story is still really good. These are not things that make the story bad. But it's important for me to point these things out because if you are considering purchasing the game, these are things to be aware of. Now that I've mentioned all of that, here's a simple solution that they could have done to solve all the confusion. Atreus, as we know, is half Greek and half giant. Make Angerboda half Egyptian and half giant. Then they could reveal later in the story that she is actually related to someone who belongs to the Egyptian pantheon of gods and goddesses. That would have explained everything. And then her skin color would no longer seem like pandering to the audience. It would actually have a purpose. So, overall, was the game good? Yes. I believe that the game was really well made. Absolutely. I would definitely recommend that you guys buy it. I would definitely recommend that you play it. It's a game that you could put a lot of hours into. I would definitely recommend that you play the 2018 version too, because that's also a really good game. That's your spoiler-free review. I hope that you end up liking this game. If you do end up purchasing it, then that'll be great. Let me know in the comments if you ended up purchasing it. Okay, so now we're going to get into spoilers. So if you don't want to know what happens in the game, definitely click away right now. We're going to go over the predictions that I got right, the predictions that I got wrong from my Predicting God of War Ragnarok video, which I published March 18th, 2021. The first prediction I made was called the Wolves, and this one I only got partly correct. I was correct that Atreus would have 3 wolves at the start or at the end of the game, but was wrong that they were Skull, Hati, and Fenrir. The second prediction I did end up getting wrong. It was called the Sun and Moon, and my prediction was that Odin would essentially cast Skull and Hati into the sky so the sun would move again, and that didn't end up happening. The third prediction is called Tyr and Fenrir. This one was wrong. Tyr was not in the rock carving prophecy, so there you have it. I really was convinced that Tyr was in that rock carving, but I guess not. The fourth prediction I made was called the World Serpent. And I predicted that a snake would come out of Atreus' mouth, and then that's what gives birth to the World Serpent. Funny enough, there is a serpent in the game that eventually does turn into Jormungandr, but it did not come out of Atreus' mouth. And there were several comments, I believe, on my video who were saying, you know, I think it's more likely that it's script coming out of his mouth, and that's basically what ended up happening. The fifth prediction I made was called Odin and Atreus, and this one I got partly correct. Odin does hunt down Atreus at the beginning of the game, but not because of the death of Balder. Instead, it's to tell him to stop looking for Tyr. The next one, number 6, is called The Warnings. This one I only got partly right. The only part of this that I got correct was that Garm would break free of his chains before Ragnarok. Let's go over my 7th prediction, Surtur and Loki. I said that a ship would sail from Jotunheim with Jotuns on board into Asgard, which does not happen, but a ship from Hell does show up in Asgard. And that's when Surtur begins his journey to Asgard. My 8th prediction is a really big one. It's who will fight/die. And I got certain parts of this right, a lot of it wrong. Basically, Kratos and Freya do create an alliance. That was correct. A young Jormungandr is knocked back in time by Thor. That was correct. Jormungandr does not kill Thor, so that's incorrect. Freya does fight against Odin. That part's correct. Thor and Odin do not fight Surtur. That's incorrect. I also said that Thor would essentially die midway through the game, and then you would get Thor's hammer, and that did not happen. Freyr does not fight Kratos. Fenrir does not fight Garm. Atreus does not fight Heimdall. Well, he technically does, but he doesn't die, which is what I predicted, and I got that incorrect. And then Odin and Freya fight, and Freya does not die. I said that she would die, and she didn't. And then the 9th prediction I made was that Odin would essentially retreat. And then that would lead to the 3rd game. And in my mind, the 3rd game would explore all the different Egyptian gods. And it's like, where is Odin gone? Is he connected with some of the gods of other pantheons? You know, stuff like that. But apparently that's not what happened. A lot of this was based on Norse mythology, and a lot of it was also based on presuming that there would be 3 games. And then a little time passed, and then I guess they announced, after my video had already come out, that they'd only be making 2 games. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. Ultimately, I had a really fun time making it. Before I end the video, I have a couple final thoughts on the game. And by a couple, I mean a lot of final thoughts on the game. The first one that I have written down here is, I'm still mad that I couldn't wear that incredible fur pelt throughout the game. And that is something that I'm actually very upset about, because I remember when Freya attacked at the beginning and the fur pelt disappeared, I was like, no, what are you doing? I'll kill you. I was so angry, and it makes me upset that you don't ever get that later in the game. So I am very disappointed by that. I really loved Thor as a character and watching his development throughout the game. It's great that he's not just some big dumb murderer. They gave him several positive qualities as well. He is devoted to becoming a better father for his daughter, and he actually tries to listen to his wife and become the person that she wants him to be, which is a great addition to the game. I actually ended up really liking Thor by the end of the game and was very sad to see him killed. Here's another important thing. I hate Odin's design. Probably a lot of people like it, but I hate it. They probably didn't want to do the stereotypical Gandalf-looking type of guy with the long hair and the long beard. I don't care. I wanted him to look cooler. There's so much amazing fan art out there of people making their own version of Odin. And I think we got one of the most boring versions of Odin I've ever seen. Marvel's version of Odin, which I think is pretty bad, looks better than this. He looks like a 50-year-old hipster that just left the coffee bar, and he talks like a wannabe gangster. It's pathetic. The character's okay, but the design, I hate the design. Here's something that I loved. I love the reveal that Tyr is actually Odin. That caught me completely by surprise, and I was not expecting it whatsoever. I was expecting Odin to do a lot more shape-shifting. When I was first playing the game, I thought that Skjoldr was actually Odin in disguise at first, but then it turned out that he was Tyr, which was awesome. I love the choice to make Freya your companion throughout the game. That was a fantastic choice. She is a character in fiction that I have come to truly appreciate. I think she has a marvelous character arc. She has a lot of flaws, but I think that is what makes her so compelling to me. I seriously hated the Ironwood sequence. everything in it to me was just completely boring. You just go from walking from this place to walking to another place. You're riding on the back of a big animal. You're just listening to these kids just talk about their lives the whole time. And it goes on for what felt like hours and hours and hours. And I just wanted it to end. Man, that was brutal. Loved watching Thor and Atreus interact with one another. Every single scene that they had together was amazing. When they went to Muspelheim, when they went to Niflheim, when Atreus was trying to get him out of the bar with Thrud, amazing. I absolutely love that. Because their contrast as characters is just so interesting to me. Watching them interact is almost, to me, it's like watching Han Solo and C-3PO interact with one another. They're just such different characters. I loved listening to Kratos talk about his brother Deimos and his daughter Calliope with Freya. It was fantastic. I remember listening to that for the first time and thinking, oh, finally, he's sharing this stuff. This is amazing. He's actually sharing this information, which is so rare for him to share anything, but to share something so personal and so profound. And I loved his reasoning too. He was like, I know about your son, you should know about my daughter. He is very much trying his best to show Freya that he can understand her. He knows what it feels like to lose a child. He really does, and he is trying to connect with her, and that was an amazing sequence. Also, the scene where Freya finally frees herself from Odin's curse was incredible. The acting was superb. Watching her completely break down midway was unbelievable. I love the relationship between Kratos and Mimir in this game. The two of them, they really are like brothers. It's so amazing. They share such a strong bond, and I can't get enough of it. Every single time I watch Kratos stick up for Mimir and watch Mimir stick up for Kratos, and the two of them have each other's back, and Kratos is constantly asking Mimir questions, and Mimir is completely trusting Kratos to do the right thing. He has a lot of faith in him. Watching them interact, amazing. Loved the sequence of the lady at the form of the forge. What made it so unbelievably sad, obviously, was when Brock realizes that he had died before, and seeing Kratos recognize how much pain he's in and being there to essentially support him and say, hey, I still need my weapon to be blessed by a great blacksmith. I need you to bless this weapon. And Brock's like, I can't do this. And he's like, no, I need this blessing. And he's like, all right, fine. You can tell that Kratos really does care for him, and I'm here for it. That was incredible. Really sad to see Brock die, but I think he died in a really well-written way. His death was purposeful, it had meaning, and it left you going, I want these guys to get Odin so badly. Because it's one thing to hear about all the stories of all these horrible things that Odin does when you don't know who he's doing the horrible things to, but when you actually get to see firsthand him doing something as horrible as killing someone that you've come to truly appreciate, it's a completely different story. It was so sad to see him go, but it was unbelievably well written, especially when he tells Sindri that he forgives him. Man, I love that so much. It was perfect that Sindri was the one to kill Odin and essentially get that justice for Brock's death, because Kratos and Freya weren't going to kill him. And I think Sindri being the one to do that was excellent. Loved the Odin and Kratos confrontation in Svartalfheim. It was fantastic to see the two of them just interact. Obviously Mimir was there, but having the two of them talk face to face and hearing Kratos say that if he's not careful, he'll essentially meet the god that he used to be, that amazing threatening voice. Oh, it's so good. It's so unbelievably good. I really loved the Kratos and Heimdall boss fight. I thought it was great. As far as all the boss fights go in the game, that was probably my favorite, watching Kratos and Heimdall fight, because that was the first time that I'd ever been like, oh shoot, he's avoiding every single one of my attacks. And then when you finally land your first punch, it's like, yes, yes, yes. It's really fantastic. I have two final thoughts. Kratos' speech before heading to Asgard was incredible, where he's like, wars are won by those who are willing to sacrifice everything. Amazing. That was absolutely gold. And finally, the ending with Kratos and Atreus saying goodbye to each other was incredible. Watching them hug each other and him saying, you know, Loki will go, but Atreus will be here, and then touching his heart, like, that is so profound. And it made me really happy to know that the game ended that way. So many times throughout the game, I thought that Kratos would die because someone hit him in the head with a golf club. I was expecting them to do so many stupid things like that and make so many stupid bullcrap decisions. I think it ended in a fantastic way, and at the end of the day, it really is a good game that I would recommend everyone to play if they get the chance. Obviously, not everyone has that type of time because it is a pretty long game, but it really is a good story and carries a lot of weight. Also, I had a lot of fun making this video, and thank you guys for being so patient and waiting for videos to churn out from this channel. I'm definitely not one of the fastest creators, so I do appreciate your patience. If you do want more content like this, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know how you felt. Hit the bell icon for notifications. That's going to be a big one because who knows when I'm putting another video out there. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.